The only time I ever saw this show from top to bottom was when it came out live, and I haven't seen it since. And after this, I probably never will watch this show ever again. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another edition of WrestleMania Review Series, and we are looking at the WrestleMania that people wish was not canon. WrestleMania 36, the one that happened right when we were on shutdown in the pandemic. There was some potential for the show. One thing's for sure that if the pandemic never happened, WrestleMania would have continued as a one night event. Luckily, the only good thing that came out of this is that they officially made WrestleMania 2 nights because people were complaining that it was 5.5 hours, myself included. I was just sick and tired of watching WrestleMania live with it being so late in the game. So I was just about had it. But this came out in a very interesting point in my life. I literally had my whole life planned ahead. I was actually going to graduate college. Unfortunately, it got postponed. I was supposed to be on this radio show, which unfortunately got canceled, and thus the formation of Coronation Studios became a thing. There was some good and bad that happened in the middle of the pandemic. I will say most of the things that happened, they tried. But as far as rewatchability, um, I don't know about that. I think what hurts it is that there was no fan interaction, no crowd, nothing. Not even like they didn't even have the NXT stars watch the show and then have them social distance throughout the night. We still didn't know how COVID was working. We didn't even know how many people were allowed to be in the arena at the exact same time. So there was just like a lot of things that made us confused. It was already 3 weeks in the pandemic, so we just wanted to get this show over with and then hopefully take a break from professional wrestling. Apparently, wrestling was essential, and I kept going consistently. Anyways, let's just get it on with it. Night one begins with Stephanie McMahon addressing the fans as this will be the first WrestleMania with no fans, which will be taking place in the Performance Center as well as other locations, as we basically tease that we will get cinematic matches. This basically was their way of saying like I'm sorry, but we hope we can entertain you. We kick off the night with, oh yeah, by the way, did I forget to mention Rob Gronkowski is the host. Let's just get the thing out of the way that everybody wants me to talk about when it comes to Rob Gronkowski. Our truth was 24/7. He was hiding from people. Rob and Mojo attack him. Mojo gets the pin and runs away with the belt. Then in night two, Rob Gronkowski falls on all these wrestlers. The footage where Vince McMahon practices how to fall down. That basically happens here. Rob Gronkowski is your 24/7 champion, and then he runs away for a couple weeks in, and we don't see Rob Gronkowski until his contract with the WWE expires. On to the first match, the Kabuki Warriors versus Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross. Fine little match. It was what it was. I was unfortunate. I kind of wish the Kabuki Warriors kept the belts because Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross, they just never clicked with me as a tag team. I don't know. Something about them just didn't click. But this does eventually lead to Asuka's singles run, which pretty much carried Raw for a good chunk of 2020. King Corbin versus Elias. And I was kind of disappointed. I mean, this match was never going to be good, but they missed out a big opportunity. They had King Corbin throw Elias um, down the ramp at the Performance Center. Elias could have played injury, and then he could have brought in Jeff Hardy to fight King Corbin instead because Jeff Hardy was coming back. I don't understand why they didn't do that. They do have King Corbin versus Jeff Hardy to build up to this match, but how do you make Jeff Hardy the afterthought in all of this? But regardless, we get Elias and King Corbin. This is as bad as you can predict. And plus, Elias has to roll up King Corbin. You mean to tell me that King Corbin went from retiring Kurt Angle to jobbing out to Elias? they regret making Baron Corbin retire Kurt Angle. You can tell just by this match alone. Raw Women's Championship, Becky Lynch versus Shayna Baszler. This was not so good match. It was only 8 minutes. I don't know if this was gonna be a good match because I don't know, something about Shayna Baszler around this time they pretty much booked her like a star. They even had her at the Elimination Chamber beat everybody. That was a good chamber. Not a good wrestling chamber, but it was a good story told chamber of how Shayna Baszler can just dominate everybody the way she did. But her losing to Becky Lynch kind of hurt her momentum, and Shayna Baszler has never recuperated from this, so I was pretty disappointed on that part of it. So I can't really say anything else about it. Becky Lynch at least gets to leave the belt, as we find out later that she was pregnant. So she had to vacate the belt, and we don't get to see Becky Lynch until next SummerSlam. Sami Zayn versus Daniel Bryan. Now, in any other card, this IC title match would have been one of the greatest show stealing matches. But this was around a time where Sami Zayn was kind of booked to be like a cowardly heel, have Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura interfere. Daniel Bryan was aligning himself with Drew Gulak, which could have worked, but it didn't. And this was just a 9 minute mess. I didn't like this match. I was very disappointed. And then we get to say that Sami Zayn beat Daniel Bryan at a WrestleMania, which, well deserved. Unfortunately, I think in hindsight they wish Daniel Bryan had won because they had to vacate the belt anyways because Sami Zayn had to go back to Canada and he pretty much wasn't allowed to be in the US for a while because of the pandemic. So a lot of people were leaving. We all thought Daniel Bryan was going to leave too, but he was willing to stay for a couple weeks until he decided to take some time off until it was time. So yeah, I think deep down they regret giving this win to Sami Zayn. What was supposed to be a triple threat tag team ladder match for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships became a triple threat match for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. No tag teams. It was just one member from each tag team. It was supposed to be Miz and Morrison, New Day, and the Usos. Instead, it became John Morrison versus Kofi Kingston versus Jimmy Uso. And this was the match of the night for a while. It was a really interesting match that worked for what it was doing. And unfortunately, wow, this was where Jimmy Uso gets injured. This was the push that Big E and Jey Uso needed to become single stars because weeks later they do Miz versus Jey Uso versus Big E, which Big E won the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. That built him up to a single star, and then Jey Uso was basically on his own, and then that led to that incredible story with the Tribal Chief. This match itself was really good. John Morrison was truly the MVP. You could tell that he was meant to be a single star, not sidelined with The Miz. I really wish that John Morrison could just come back, have one final proper run, and then retire. I really wish that Johnny Mundo, Johnny TV, whatever you want to call him, leaves AEW and then comes back because his work here is amazing. I know Triple H will take good care of him. He was great in Lucha Underground as Johnny Mundo, and this is no more proof of it. He did an amazing job, and he was willing to sacrifice his back when he pulls the belt and then he falls onto another ladder. Kofi and John Morrison, we already know that they're good single stars. Jimmy Uso was still practicing, but obviously we all know today that Jey Uso is the better single star. Then we get Kevin Owens versus Seth Rollins. This is the Messiah Seth Rollins. This is when he was like a god or something like that. It started off as a solid match, but then they had that stupid DQ finish with Seth Rollins knocking out Kevin Owens with a bell, only for Kevin Owens to be like, no, that is BS. That's not what a god does. A god fights no matter what. So let's restart the match. Let's make it no DQ. And then they do a no DQ match for a while. It does pretty good. But the infamous moment was Kevin Owens climbing the WrestleMania sign. Dives. There's rumors that if they were at the stadium, they were supposed to have a big boat and Kevin Owens was gonna jump from it. I don't know if that's true, but this moment with Kevin Owens winning, good moment for Kevin Owens. Unfortunately, it happened in front of nobody, but don't worry, Kevin Owens gets his moments at the next upcoming WrestleManias. I can't wait to talk about those. Then we get a horrible match. Goldberg versus Braun Strowman for the Universal Championship. It was supposed to be Goldberg and Roman Reigns, but Roman Reigns, after finding out that The Miz got COVID, he said, I ain't risking it. I just have twins. I'm not going to risk it. I'm just going to stay home and call it. And they had a last minute replacement in Braun Strowman. They tried to push Braun Strowman, and he was deserving of the Universal Championship in 2017 and 2018. This was around the time where Braun Strowman was already watered down and they just needed a last minute replacement. And the fact that Braun Strowman beat Goldberg in his last WrestleMania match, it's kind of crazy to me. And it's only 2 minutes and it's just spear, body slam, spear. No jackhammer because there's no way Goldberg can pick up Braun Strowman as old as he was. Undertaker versus AJ Styles main events in a Boneyard match. And this was the cinematic match that we needed. This is the match that everybody talks about. Well, at least one of them. When it comes to WrestleMania 36. When you look back at WrestleMania 36, you only talk about the cinematic matches. And this was actually Undertaker's farewell match. Believe it or not. This was supposed to be in the ring, but then they took advantage of it. Like, let's make something different. Let's make it in a graveyard. I love the story of AJ Styles burying the Undertaker, saying like, "Oh, yeah, you know who's been dragging you down? It's been your wife, and I'm gonna help her bury you once and for good." The back and forth was awesome. They did it in a graveyard or a boneyard, I should say. It was really good back and forth. I love the story that these guys have told. And for AJ Styles to say that he had the Undertaker's last match, I'm pretty sure he's more than satisfied. Like, he main evented against the Undertaker in his last match. I know deep down we all wanted Undertaker to have that in-ring match in front of a crowd, but let's be honest, it wasn't going to be good. So let's just work with what we got. They did something different, unique. They had Gallows and Anderson interfere. They had explosions. They basically got set on fire, and then they don't come back till 2022. My favorite part was when AJ was about to bury the Undertaker, only for Undertaker to use his mythical powers and come from the back. It was just pure cinema, very entertaining, and I love the ending when he's finally beating up AJ and he goes, "What's my wife's name? You're gonna talk about my age?" And he's just talking smack, drags him down into this coffin or this hole that AJ Styles had dug up, only for the tombstone to already say AJ Styles. That was just badass. And then Undertaker driving off into the sunset. This was a combination of every Undertaker we've known and loved to this day. We had the classic zombie Undertaker. We had the Dead Man, the American Badass. So we had a combination of all the Undertakers. Him driving off to Metallica was awesome, and it was a good way to close off night one. This is really the best match of both nights for me. We'll talk about night two very soon. On to night two, and we kick off with Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair for the NXT Women's Championship. Now, I really like this feud of Rhea Ripley challenging Charlotte Flair, addressing Survivor Series, how Rhea Ripley took her out in that tag team match. Everything about it was great, except one thing. Charlotte Flair did not need to win the Royal Rumble. Let's be honest with ourselves. Charlotte Flair was going to win eventually. I think the story would have benefited if somebody else won the Royal Rumble, and then we would have Charlotte be like, there is no way we're going to have WrestleMania go on without the Queen. And then that's when Rhea Ripley challenges her. That is the only thing I would change from this build, because this match was great. This is a precursor to WrestleMania 39 without the dumb Rhea tapping out thing. But this match was really good. I like the Rhea Ripley outfit with the Vegeta look from Dragon Ball Z. Also, I like this theme song of Rhea Ripley. We've heard Brutality, but this is like the original version, and I really enjoy it. I did have a problem with Charlotte making Rhea tap out, but the match itself was really good, and I think having Charlotte win and go into NXT as a champion was going to help give viewers because NXT needed Charlotte Flair. She was hands down the best part. Unfortunately, she got injured and got taken out of majority of the show, but I couldn't really get mad at this. Plus, it benefited in the long run when we get Rhea and Charlotte at WrestleMania 39, which I'm excited to talk about because I was there. But anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself yet again. Great match, hands down the best actual match on the show, non-cinematic. So honestly, for me, I even like this more than the match that everybody says was the best match of the night for night two. So that's just a hot take that y'all gonna have to accept from me. Aleister Black versus Bobby Lashley in just a regular match. They didn't even really build it up. They just had two top Raw guys that deserved to be on the card. They just crammed them in here. Bobby Lashley was getting over that stupid Rusev Lana triangle that became square when Liv Morgan got involved. But I thought that this match was not that good. These guys have really awkward chemistry. Plus, like I said, there was no build to it. And Aleister Black was just doing some amazing work. Too bad that they never did much with it. They kept him undefeated. I hope that once he is officially back on the main card, that they actually do get Aleister Black correctly. I'm really excited for what Aleister Black can do now that he is back on WWE. And Bobby Lashley, this was he needed to lose because they needed to bury this whole Lana thing out to the side, and then they move on to the awesome run of Bobby Lashley's career with the Hurt Business. But this match was not good. I can't even remember what happened. A lot of these matches I cannot even remember what happened for most of it. Dolph Ziggler versus Otis. Oh my goodness, I remember watching this. I was like so hyped for this match. I was very happy for Otis. This was a very interesting and unique storyline. Mandy Rose gets a gift from Otis. Otis starts falling in love with her. Otis helps Mandy Rose not get eliminated from the Royal Rumble. This is going to lead to some great stuff. At the end, Dolph Ziggler screwed over Otis. There was a fake text where Otis gets screwed over at Valentine's Day. There was this whole story. Then they built up the hacker. They properly had him on the show, basically being the one to reveal what happened between Dolph Ziggler and Sonya Deville's planning. Then we had the match. It wasn't a good match, let's be honest, but that moment of Mandy Rose coming out, attacking Sonya Deville, screwing over Dolph Ziggler, Otis getting his victory, and then they kiss at the end after Otis wins. That was really the only thing worth watching. I was so happy for Otis. They did over push him because he eventually wins Money in a Bank, which led to nothing. And they had to rejuvenate his career when he aligned himself with Chad Gable after Heavy Machinery broke up for whatever reason. A match that had no right to be this long was Edge and Randy Orton. This match was 36 minutes. At this point, it was the second longest match in WWE history. At this point, it was the second longest match in WrestleMania history behind the Iron Man match with Shawn and Bret, which will never be topped. This match was exaggeratedly long. It was really dumb. Just them going from place to place. They had some creative ideas, but it just wasn't working. It was just too long. There was like no reaction to anybody. Even the commentary died out because it was like, what do we talk about? RKO's, them going from spot to spot. It just wasn't working for me, and them dragging it out was just too much. They kicked out of RKOs and spears, just basically no selling their moves. It took a concerto to Edge for it to finally end. And for it being a last man standing, a lot of people complain that last man standing matches stop and go. And this was a good example of it because they just stopped and go. It wasn't a horrible match. It wasn't the greatest wrestling match that happens later in the year. But this match, honestly, if they trimmed it down by 15 minutes, we would have been good. This match did not need to go 36 minutes, 37 almost. Then we get a match I completely forgot about. The Street Profits versus Angel Garza and Austin Theory. I am not making this up. That is an actual tag team. The story was Andrade got hurt, so they had to get a last minute replacement, and they landed on Austin Theory, a guy who hasn't even been on television that much. They just put him there just for the sake of it. This would have been the perfect time to have Humberto Carrillo be like, I'm not going to miss WrestleMania. I know you screwed me, but at the end of the day, you're my brother. They should have done that at least, because at least Humberto Carrillo was on TV. Austin Theory, he goes back to NXT anyways. We weren't ready for 8-Town Down Under. We didn't have that yet. Instead, they have this forgettable ass match that nobody talks about to this day. The only thing that I remembered, because I watched it again, was Bianca Belair coming out to make the save at the end when the tag teams that lost attack the Street Profits. Good for the Street Profits for being on the card, but yeah, no one talks about this match. No one remembers this match even happening. I forgot. I literally read. I'm like, oh yeah, this happened. Then we get Bayley versus Sasha Banks, Lacey Evans, Naomi, and Tamina, and a fatal 5-way elimination match for the SmackDown Women's Championship. The only memorable thing was that this was an elimination match. They had the reunion of Team Bad. Sasha Banks gets eliminated by Lacey Evans, and Sasha Banks helps Bayley get the win, showing her commitment to Bayley that she will be Bayley's lackey, which was not deserving. I thought Sasha for sure was gonna win, which honestly she should have. At this point, she has been 3-0 at WrestleMania, so they should have given her victory at this WrestleMania. Sasha Banks, honestly, she should have won the Royal Rumble. The rumor was that she was part of Mandalorian season 2, so they unfortunately had to cut her out of the Royal Rumble, which is why she didn't participate. Shayna Baszler, they wanted to do the chamber, so last minute was, you know what, for safety reasons, Charlotte Flair. So really, if you think about it, it's kind of Sasha Banks' fault. And let's be honest, she didn't do much in the Mandalorian, so come on. Anyways, we get Bayley and Sasha Banks later in the year, but this match, not that good. It was just an excuse to keep the belt on Bayley. I didn't like this match. I was pretty bored for most of it. I was bored for a big chunk of this show, which is why I didn't even bother to turn the lights on here. Let's talk about the Firefly Funhouse. The Fiend, Bray Wyatt versus John Cena. And I am very conflicted because I will say this was one of the more entertaining things on the show, but it wasn't really a match now, was it? It was just a brief summary of John Cena's career, them addressing the WrestleMania 30 match, and then at the end having John Cena repeat the words like, it's time to bury the most overhyped, overprivileged wrestler in the history of this company. And in the promo, he's talking about Bray Wyatt, but then they switch it around and they turn it on John Cena. It had some good moments. I like them basically going through the entire career of John Cena. Basically tearing down who he is. Ruthless aggression. He misses. He sings the Bella Twins theme song. Bray Wyatt does. They go in the Firefly Funhouse. They open the door. Goes in there. They call out John Moxley when he said, "This is such good shit." They had all these good things. The Doctor Thugonomics, Johnny Large Meat, John Cena lifting weights like this was funny and awesome. And then he gets weaker and weaker as the time goes. And then when he finally gets in the match, beats up Bray Wyatt, turns out he's been beating Huskus, this pig, this whole time. They teased the heel turn that didn't really happen until 2025. Where him being the leader of the NWO, Bray Wyatt mimicking Eric Bischoff. So this was very entertaining, but it really wasn't a match now, was it? It even got to a point where, like, when the Fiend and John Cena are officially in the ring, that's when the bell rings. They put the mandible claw on John Cena. So really, if you think about it, it says 13 minutes, but if I'm being honest, this match was really technically like 20 seconds. Like, the whole other parts of it was good. I will say I like this. Still, I think Charlotte and Rhea was my favorite match to watch out of all of this, but this doesn't discredit. I do like the Firefly Funhouse match. It is remembered fondly to this day, and yeah, it was very entertaining. But it wasn't really a match, now was it? The best part was Titus O'Neil's reaction at the end, just like, I don't know what I just saw. And then wrapping up the show was Brock Lesnar and Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship. It was 4 minutes of suplex F5. Uh, Drew McIntyre kicking out of a F5 in the 1 count. It's Claymore country. This was Drew McIntyre's big comeback push and the biggest moment of his career, with unfortunately not being a crowd there. But with that said, 2020 was an amazing year for Drew McIntyre. Him beating Brock Lesnar and carrying Raw was the best thing that happened for the pandemic. Drew McIntyre was a true savior, and I hope that deep down he gets a proper run at the world title or the WWE title eventually, because Drew McIntyre is just that damn good. At the time, WWE was so heavily built on pushing this big muscular guy, but didn't really have the talent and charisma. We finally found a guy that both the fans and the WWE liked, and Drew McIntyre was just it. I know 2019 wasn't a good year for him. He was mainly aligned himself with Shane McMahon. He didn't really do much. He was just on the sidelines for most of it. But in the beginning of 2020, he just started getting over with singles matches. And lo and behold, we find out that this was leading to a babyface turn and him eliminating Brock Lesnar from the Royal Rumble. So some good came out of it. He won the Royal Rumble. And Drew McIntyre was just so entertaining around this point. And unfortunately, the crowd wasn't there to witness it, because this moment would have been phenomenal in front of a crowd. That's it for my review for this show, both nights. Overall, they tried. They tried to give us a good show. They worked with what they got, but let's be honest, we're never going to go back and rewatch this. They'll never put it on highlight promos. The most they'll do is the Boneyard match and the Firefly Funhouse, but it's nothing that people are going to go back and remember. So unfortunately, I'm going to have to give this a D, because I don't see myself ever going back to watch this. It's just my personal take. But with that said, I am happy that they tried and they try to give us the best show, but it's just going to be hard watching a show without a crowd. It does lead to a 2-night WrestleMania moving forward, so there's some good that came out of this. But anyways, let's talk about WrestleMania 37 on the next video. Take care, everyone.